Hello and welcome to our webinar, Selling Third-Party Maintenance, brought to you by Smart Third Party. I'm your host, Kenna Johnson with the Channel Company. Today, we're going to discuss advanced strategies and tactics of selling TPM. All these tips can be found in the book, Selling Third-Party Maintenance, The Ultimate Playbook. Joining me today, we have the author of the book and president of Smart Third Party, Ken Peck. Welcome, Ken.
Thank you very much, Kenna.
Selling Third-Party Maintenance, The Ultimate Playbook is now in its second edition. How does it help simplify the sales process?
When I originally wrote the first edition and now in the second edition, the goal was to have a simple format, really to help our partners and their sales reps create a battle plan when they go out and in the marketplace trying to acquire new existing customers and presenting TPM and the value proposition for TPM. And really, fortunately, a lot of our partners have taken the playbook and they use it as part of their new hire Salesforce onboarding and go through have them read the book, and then we'll do similar to this webinar, but a more personal one-on group. In today's environment, we doing Zooms. We used to do what we called lunch and learns, but it's basically giving them a tool when somebody doesn't really know anything about TPM, gives them a background of TPM, and then I've taken some of the common sales principles and adopted it as it applies to TPM.
Let's dive into the book. What are the key drivers of frustration in third-party maintenance decision-making?
Great question. And the number one driver, there are many reasons for the end users to adopt TPM. It could be, costs, they're under extreme pressure. They're not satisfied with what they're getting from the manufacturer. They have too many agreements to manage. But at the end of the day, it's about the money. It really is the number one driver. The reason people make the move to TPM is they want to save money. And in that process, as a salesperson, and this is totally oversimplifying the process, but there's really only two questions that the end user have. One, obviously, is how much money is it going to save? And two is, and this is really simple, can you do it? Meaning that what's my risk? Can you make me feel comfortable and that you can perform? Can you do it? It's the money and can you do it? It always boils down to that.
Now let's move on to the sales process. What are the steps from contact to close in which prospects become valued customers?
It's like selling anything. You got to have a process. And it doesn't matter whether you're selling, TPM or software, or in the consumer world, selling roofing on a house or commercial roofing. It all starts with making that initial contact. And if you're a sales rep and you're starting out and you're going to offer TPM, you should probably have two buckets of that initial contact. Warm contacts, which is obviously the easier way to go. And, all of us as salespeople, always want that path of least resistance. So you have a bucket of warm contacts, and then you need to make a solid list of targets. Who's the best fit? So once you, and how you make that initial contact, there's multiple ways. I mean, you could have your company having inbound coming off web leads. I mean, that's one way. And then you could have a cadence and an outreach to those key targets. And you can use multiple channels. You can use email, which emails, everybody's getting bombarded with emails. You can use LinkedIn, which is now, yes, not as bad as email, but it's still getting crowded. And, the crazy thing is still today, the telephone. So, you can hit people on all three channels. And there's a fourth channel that, in today's environment really doesn't work because so many people are still working from home. it's an old fashioned, snail mail. And if you do a campaign like that, what you need to do is have what I refer to as a shock and awe kit, which gets the people's attention. That can be a kind of an expensive way to get somebody to raise their hand and say, hey, I want to talk to you, tell me more, but it can be very effective. So, once you've done those two things, and until you do that, you're basically at a 0% chance of winning any business. Then you want those people to, like I said, raise their hand. The second step is somebody through one of those channels has said, hey, I'm kind of interested. Tell me more. And all you're asking for, it depends on whether you want 8 minutes, 10 minutes, or 12 minutes. I wouldn't ask for much more than that, to just tell your story to see if your company might be a fit to solve that TPM solution. So once you get somebody on the phone and they're giving you that 10 minutes, the third step, which is really the really critical step, because if you can get to the third step, you probably got a 50% chance of closing the opportunity. And that is simply get the list. If anything, and I preach it over and over with salespeople, get the list, get the list, get the list. Because if a prospect hands you an equipment list of their assets that are under coverage somewhere with somebody and another provider, that means they're most likely going to make a decision some point in the future. And that's a key milestone, that third step, getting that, it puts you in about a 50% close. So once you have that list and you've provided a quotation to your potential prospect, you want to engage that prospect. The next fourth step is, we call it a technical vetting call. Sometimes it may not be even technical. It may be more process oriented. Prospect may ask the question, okay, I'm with the OEM, we switch over to your TPM and it's 12 midnight, 1 a.m. on a Saturday. What do I do? What's the difference? What's going to happen? And on those calls, typically we provide our, either operational people or technical people, because it may get into some technical questions. It may be, let's say it's an IBM mainframe. What does my support look like? Do you have the engineering capability? And so that technical or process vetting call, you're really moving up the scale if you successfully, complete that. And then after that, that's your fourth step. And then the fifth step is simply making the close. Okay. If you've done all the steps and you've asked all the questions, and we've got a lot of the questions in the book, you should be prepared to make that close. That's pretty much the process.
Ken, how does understanding the buyer's journey help with the sales process?
You got the flip side, because you've got what's going on from our side, which is the sales process. But in being effective in that sales process, if we understand what's going through, the buyer's mind, it's going to be extremely beneficial. And it's pretty much a 4-step process. We like to keep things simple. And the first step is awareness. And in today's marketplace, once somebody says, hey, we're spending too much money on maintenance, what are my alternatives? They're going to start looking around. And the key to being successful is you as a rep and your company needs to be engaged in the marketplace. So when that time occurs, those people say, hey, I'm thinking of you because, you've made me aware. People will do internet searches and all that. So, you can get into keywords and all that, which is a whole another topic. So once they've made that decision, the second, getting aware, they're going to do consideration. And consideration means, okay, I've done my research. I'm going to talk to, 2, 3, and usually no more than 4. I've seen on some larger opportunities where the customer starts with 16 TPMs and narrows it to 4, and then, makes their final decision. But usually most people aren't going to put that much, time into consideration. They're going to look at 2, maybe 3, possibly 4 people. So, they become aware. Now they're, who are we going to consider in this? And after they've considered, then they're going to do the comparison shop. And that's where you match that, step 3, comparison shopping, with engaging the prospect with a technical vetting call, because that's where you're going to have to shine, because, it's going to come down to, okay, who do we feel comfortable with? And again, price. Can you do it? And price. And then they make a decision, the 4th step.
When it comes to TPM, OEM sales representatives typically suggest if you move to TPM, your IT infrastructure will end. Is there any truth to that statement?
I love that question, because that's really the $1 million question. And the simple answer is no, life doesn't end. But it's the OEM's job to create what we call FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Most people are familiar with the term in the IT industry. I learned it in my early days in my IT career. It is the $1 million question. And probably my best reference would be, I was at a Gartner conference in Orlando. It was an end user procurement conference, and Christine Tennyson from Gartner was speaking about TPM. And your question was one of the questions in the audience. How many times do the end users go back to the OEM once they've made the decision to go TPM? And Christine said, she'd been covering TPM for 13 years, and she's only seen that happen less than both fingers 10 times. And in every case, it was not because of performance of the TPM, but they had some software issues, which actually means that somewhere in the process, whether it was the TPM that was engaged or the end user, there was not a connection, because if those software issues are part, that should come out, in that sales process and in the vetting. But at the end of the day, I'm aware of end users that have gone to TPM that are, Fortune 100 accounts spending over $1 million that, we're spending multiples of millions of dollars with the OEM. Year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, they're still doing TPM. So the answer is no, the world's not going to end if you go to TPM. What's going to happen is you're going to save a lot of money and find out that the risk was really not as great as you thought.
According to Gartner, the best practice for IT maintenance is a hybrid solution. What's the best way to implement a hybrid solution?
That's what we pretty much preach, is selling a hybrid solution. And that's pretty much Gartner's best practice. It means, one shoe doesn't fit all sizes. And to do an effective implementation of a hybrid solution, it starts with an assessment. And you should do an analysis. And we have a smart analysis that we can do for the end user. And what you do is compile all the assets, take an asset inventory, and you look at which assets make the most sense to stay with the OEM and which assets make the most sense to go TPM. In its simplest format, you look at year 1, 2, and 3. That's when the most risk exists. That's when the OEM is doing firmware, software, patches, updates, etc. And it comes with a warranty. And usually there's a slight uplift for a higher quality warranty. What we recommend in most cases, just keep those assets with the OEM. Then after year 3, going into year 4, 5, and 6, let's take a hard look, at which assets may benefit from that cost savings of TPM. And then after year 6, it probably in most cases really doesn't even make sense to keep any assets with the OEM because you're, getting into end of life, into service, those types of things. And in that analysis, you're going to look at, okay, what's the risk if we move this asset to TPM? And those older assets, there's not much risk because the risk is really in the software piece. And what happens, and Gartner has a few reports that have, brought this, to the forefront. All the development that's going on is being done on the newer assets. After year 4, 5, and 6, there's not a whole lot of new things that could be potential risk items for the end users. So that's basically how you do it. You start with the assessment, you look at it, and then you price it out and see what the savings is going to be in a hybrid environment versus 100% OEM.
Ken, can you share some insider secrets for making the third-party sale?
I can give some insider secrets. And the first secret is there's no magic pill. I mean, we as salespeople wish we could have a silver bullet and fire the bullet and get all the business. But there are some things you can do and implement that increase your chances of success. And one of the insider secrets would be create a plan. Have a plan and execute your plan. And that starts with a targeted list. And really, from a sales perspective, remember, in sales, you should be asking more questions than just, keeping and it's hard as salespeople, I understand that. And in the book, we do have a series of about 10 recommended questions that kind of help you through that process. And the reason you want to ask the questions is if you're asking the right questions, your prospect's going to tell you how to sell to them. And they're going to tell you what their pain points are. And one of the key questions that a lot of salespeople are scared to ask is, what conditions need to exist for XYZ company, your prospect, to move forward with ABC company, your company, on this opportunity, engagement, decision. Let the customer tell you what, and they're going to tell you, price is going to be important. We got to feel comfortable with you, but you got to ask what conditions need to exist for us to, successfully, earn your business. I mean, it's simple stuff, but a lot of people fail to do it. So
all of this information can be found in your book. How successful has it been, and where can we find this book?
We feel like it's been very successful. All of our things that, whether it's literature, books, or whatever, it's by far the number one asset. And it's been downloaded, not just in the US, globally, and it continues. And the good news is I'm working on the 3rd edition, and I'm going to take a deeper dive into that hybrid solution and some of the tools and things that we offer our partners to help them sell that hybrid solution. Many of our partners use it as a training guide for their new hires. So, and we want to keep, coming out with more and more detail to help our partners sell TPM. So it's available on our website, and actually you can get it on Amazon. And we've had some folks, buy it for 99 cents on Amazon versus free from us. But anyhow, that's where you can get it.
Ken, you mentioned a 3rd edition. When can we expect that to come out?
We're trying to wrap it up. The goal is to have it out by the end of the year. Hopefully it should be, the success that we've had with the other 2 editions. And we're always open with our partners to do more formalized training, webinars, lunch and learns as part of the process and helping them sell TPM. Thanks.
Thank you for watching. For the Channel Company, I'm Kenna Johnson.